Hello everybody, this is Cozy Beckett Drummer here. This is kind of the first video that I'm posting here on YouTube for you guys. I hope you guys are doing alright. This is me, I'm Cozy Beckett, and I am a drummer and a singer, but I also play some other instruments as well. I play guitar, I play bass, I play keyboards, I play a bunch of other things, but I'm mainly a drummer and a singer. I've been singing for about 13 years, I've been drumming for about 9, and I drum in various groups. I just come and go, but I'm an original member in a band called Lazy Lizard. I will also be posting some videos on this account of our music once we start getting into the recording process. But but this account will be, just a bunch of music stuff. Just all be music, album ranks from worst to best. We'll do like album wars, like which two albums would, between the two is my personal favorite. Or, I will show you some drum covers. I will show you some drum tutorials and a lot of recordings that I've done with other groups. But today I pulled out a big stack of all my Black Sabbath CDs that I will be ranking from worst to best for you guys. I have two of the same CDs of the first album, Black Sabbath. The other one's in the rank as well, but I just sat this one out to show you guys. This is what we'll be ranking Black Sabbath. Here we go. So I'm going to start from the worst, and then I'll go down to the best. So I put these two together, which is 13 and The End. The End's more of an EP. It just got 4 studio songs and 4 live songs from Sydney, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada during their The End tour. I don't know, it's just these two were just very heavy Black Sabbath albums. They didn't really sound like Sabbath to me at all. All you can hear was Ozzy and barely any of Tony Iommi's main riffs that you've heard in the previous Black Sabbath albums. That's just not my personal favorite album at all. 13's not my favorite. The next one would be Sabotage, which was a very unhappy album. Around the same time, Ozzy was going through a lot of drug issues and alcohol problems. Bill Ward was going through the same thing. Mostly everybody in the band was going through drugs. They were just, using all their money from albums and tours on buying drugs and coke, and, they just bought bag after bag after bag, and they were just using it all, and it was just messing them up. But this was just an unhappy album, just the way it was written. Some songs were just not good at all. I like Hole in the Sky and Symptom of the Universe, but that's probably all I like from this album. Next, Technical Ecstasy is another unhappy album. It was, kind of close to the end of the classic Sabbath albums, the classic Ozzy era. They knew it was coming. Ozzy was ready to go out on his own, and he just couldn't find a way to tell anybody, but he was so messed up. He couldn't say anything to anybody, just with the drugs and the alcohol, it messes you up. But Technical Ecstasy, just the way it was written, just some songs were okay. Dirty Women's alright. Gypsy is alright. There's one song on here that has Bill Ward on vocals, which is the third song, It's Alright, which is pretty good. It's not bad at all, especially for Bill Ward's first album to sing on. Next is Seventh Star. This is kind of both the Sabbath album and a Tony Iommi solo album, so you just can't really decide, is it a Sabbath album or a Tony Iommi solo album? Well, who knows? You could just say what you want. But this was just another weird album by Sabbath, since it was more of Tony's solo thing because of how it was said on the album. It says Black Sabbath featuring Tony Iommi. Some songs are okay, though. Maybe the self-titled 7 Stars, alright. Turn Turn to Stone's okay, and For the Kill, but, just the other songs on there were just written very weird. Next, we have Sabbath, Bloody Sabbath. Back several years ago when I first started listening to Black Sabbath, this was kind of ranked very low as well. I just didn't really care much for this one. It was just very weird. It sounded way too poppy as well. It was more of a pop metal genre for Sabbath. I mean, I like all the keyboards that Sabbath used after Ozzy, but just with Ozzy, it just didn't make Sabbath the way it was. But there we have that one. Next is Never Say Die. Then again, it's ranked very low because it was the last album to feature the classic lineup of Sabbath with Ozzy, Tony, Geezer, and Bill. Ozzy refused to do the last song, Swinging the Chain, which Bill Ward sang that song on this album as well, which is okay. It's pretty good, but just most of these songs on here were just written and recorded very weird. It was just a weird album. It was just an unusual Sabbath album. Just if you listen to it, you can know something is wrong between Sabbath and Ozzy, and they were just ready to move on without him, and he was ready to go solo. And they were right all along. They went with Dio, and Ozzy went with Randy Rhoads and Lee Kerslake and Bob Daisley to do The Blizzard of Oz. Next, we've got Born Again. I've ranked this one very low as well. I didn't like the mixing of this one. Just the final mixing of all the songs on here, I just didn't like. I didn't like how Bill drums came out. I like Tony's guitar playing on this, though, and Ian's singing, because I've always been a big fan of Deep Purple and Ian Gillan. Ian's voice sounds really good on this album, but it's just the way it was mixed. I didn't like it. But most of the songs on there were written very, very, very well. Next, Eternal Idol, which is the first album with Tony Martin. A lot of people argue, hey, is this a Tony Martin album or is this a Ray Gillan album? Because Ray Gillan was in the sessions recording all these songs with his singing in it before he was booted out and Tony Martin was hired to sing with Sabbath. I love both Ray Gillan's sessions and Tony Martin's original release with this. They both sound good, but it was just some songs were not written very well. Maybe some of the songs that I didn't like were Ancient Warrior, Born to Lose I didn't care much for. Nightmare, I didn't listen to that one much, but the riff on Nightmare was pretty good. The Shining and Hard Life to Love and Glory Ride and self-titled Eternal Idol I really liked on this album. They were just very doomy. It sounded very Sabbath, especially the self-titled. It sounds just like the first song on the first album, Black Sabbath. And speaking of Black Sabbath, that's next on the ranks. I've always liked this album, but then again, I didn't. It was just a back and forth thing. If I wanted to listen to it, I would. If I didn't want to listen to it, I didn't have to, and I didn't. Just some songs on here I liked, like self-titled, The Wizard, and NIB. I only liked. Evil Woman was kind of, bluesy, which this was more of a blues album. That's what they did when they were named as Earth, and they recorded at least 3 or 4 songs, and that was the end of Earth, and they renamed it Black Sabbath. But they were more of a blues rock until they got into like Paranoid and Master of Reality. They changed their genre. But yeah, this album just wasn't my personal favorite. But it was still a good classic album. Same for this one, Master of Reality. It is a very classic album. Like, you've got some good songs on here, like Sweet Leaf, Children of the Grave, Lord of this World, and Into the Void. It's got good stuff on it, but it just wasn't my personal favorite. Next, we've got The Headless Cross. It was very hard ranking this one because I do like the album. Self-titled, Devil and Daughter, Call of the Wild, Black Moon. It's got good songs on it. but then again, it was just hard to choose because it wasn't my favorite. But then again, there are some good songs on here that makes me think this album should be ranked higher. It's just a hard decision. This is the first album with Cozy Powell. This is Cozy Powell's first coming into the band, and this was the second album with Tony Martin, and Brian May was featured on this album on the song "When Death Calls," and that is another good song as well. It's very, very doomy, and Brian May's solo on the album was just great. The song ended out being all right. Next, we've got Heaven and Hell. It's very classic. Plus, it's the very first album with Ronnie James Dio, which Ronnie James Dio is my favorite singer of all time. I used to hate Black Sabbath with Dio, and I used to hate Ronnie James Dio because he replaced Ozzy. But when I first heard Heaven and Hell and Mob Rules, I was like, oh my God, I need to listen to more Dio because he had a voice. He was just top of the line. But this one I rank kind of in between is because it just wasn't my personal favorite. Maybe some songs on there like Neon Nights, Children of the Sea, Lady Evil, Die Young, Self-Titled. Good stuff on here, but it just wasn't my favorite to bump it up. Next we have Cross Purposes. It's a great album. Most of the songs on here are great, like more of the beginning of the album, like Eyewitness, Cross of Thorns, Psychophobia, Virtual Death, Immaculate Deception. Good stuff. And there was also a rumor about this album that Eddie Van Halen played on Evil Eye, which is wrong. Eddie Van Halen wrote the song. He wrote the lyrics, and he wrote some of the guitar stuff for Tony. But he never played on the album. He never played on the song nor the album. But it's still a good album. Got really good songs. I would have ranked it higher, but I've got more albums coming up that are much better than Cross Purposes. Next is Black Sabbath's very, very first live album, Live Evil, or Live Evil, however you want to pronounce it. It still sounds the same. It still sounds pretty good, but I call it Live Evil. But this is the deluxe version from Universal Music Company. I've collected a bunch of these deluxe editions. But this album here, it's really, really good. It turned out to be just amazing how they mixed it. It was, a lot of people have argued saying the mixing of the album was very poor. Dio himself has also said the mixing of the album he didn't care much for. He just didn't care about the mixing of the album. His personal favorite live album is probably Rainbow on Stage. That one an intermission for him. But he said around this time, Dio and Tony were kind of arguing back and forth about a bunch of business reasons. And, Dio was wanting to kind of change Sabbath the way he wanted it to be. Plus, Dio was ready to go solo. And right after the tour of Mob Rules and Live Evil, he was out on his own recording Holy Diver and Last in Line and Sacred Heart and so on. But he eventually came back to Sabbath to record Dehumanizer, which will be coming up here very, very soon. Next, we've got Tear, which is another album with Cozy, Neil Murray, Tony Martin and Tony Iommi, and the great Jeff Nichols on keyboards. This is a great album. When I first got it and I first listened to it, it blew me away. Anna Mundi, The Lawmaker, Jerusalem, Sabbath Stones, Heaven in Black. Now more of the middle part of the album, like the Battle of Tear, that was just an instrumental, which, it kind of feels like it's futuristic. Like you just sit there and listen to that song, the instrumental going into the Odin's Court and Valhalla. It sounds good if you soak yourself into it. Feels Good to Me, Black Sabbath has said, Feels Good to Me was a single that was released the same time Tear was released, and Feels Good to Me just wasn't, it just didn't fit well for the album, but it was still a really good album. All right, we are down to the top 10 albums of Sabbath, which I'm excited now because all these albums I still listen to. I still listen to all the Sabbath albums, but these last 5 here I listen to the most. Next, on the top 5, we've got Mob Rules, which is the second album of Ronnie James Dio with Sabbath. This was the very, very first Black Sabbath album that I listened to with Dio. I listened to like Stargazer by Rainbow at the time, and it blew me away. And when I first heard it again after listening to Black Sabbath, and I heard Cozy Powell's drumming, and it turned me on, and it made me become a better drummer and a better singer, being influenced to Cozy Powell and Ronnie James Dio. But this album here just rocks it out. Turn Up the Night, it starts out with that song, and it just explodes out there. Voodoo is another great classic song. It sounds very classic Sabbath. The Sign of the Southern Cross, very doomy, very, very, very doomy song. The instrumental E5150, which kind of rushes into the Mob Rules, self-titled, which the Mob Rules sounds great. Country Girl, Slipping Away, Falling Off the Edge of the World, and the last song, Over and Over. The whole album, I loved it. I sat there, listened to the entire album on my CD player, and I was just stunned. I thought it was amazing. Same for this next one here, Dehumanizer. When I first got this album, I went home and listened to this one for a few days, and it was just phenomenal. And I still listen to it to this day. Computer God, After All the Dead, TV Crimes, Letters from Earth, Master of Insanity, Time Machine from the amazing Wayne's World movie. I love that movie. Sins of the Father, Too Late, I Am Buried Alive. All the songs that are shown here, flat out amazing. I listened to this whole album back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's just amazing. Such a great album. Next is the very first Black Sabbath album that I ever bought. Very first CD I actually bought. And it is Paranoid. Very, very classic Sabbath with Ozzy. This one used to be my favorite Black Sabbath album of all time. You have the amazing War Pigs and Paranoid and Iron Man. You got the Electric Funeral, Hand of Doom, Fairies Wear Boots, Rat Salad, which is the Bill Ward drum solo. This album is phenomenal. When I first heard it, when I came home with it, it was about 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago. I was, still a bit young, and I was interested in buying CDs, and this was the very first one that I ever bought in my collection. And now I have all these Black Sabbath albums. I have Rainbow, I have Dio, I have Blue Oyster Cult, and Motorhead, and Metallica, and AC/DC, and Motley Crue, and Steppenwolf. I have all these CDs in my collection. I have collected so much over the years. This is a great one. Got really good classic songs on it. We are down to the final 2. Now, these last 2, you may think shouldn't be there, but it's just my opinion. Your opinion is your opinion as well. If you want to comment below what your opinion on these albums, what your favorite is, by all means, you can. Number 2, Volume 4. I've always liked this album. I always have. From top to bottom, Wheels of Confusion, Tomorrow's Dream, Changes, Supernaut, Snowblind, Cornucopia, Laguna Sunrise, which is the little Tony Iommi acoustic instrumental, Into St. Vitus Dance, and Under the Sun. Just the whole album itself. I used to listen to this album at least 4 or 5 times every day, if not more. I maybe listened to it at least 15, 20 times every day when I was much younger. This was probably... maybe I used to collect all the Ozzy stuff first, and this was kind of The one that I bought along with Technical Ecstasy and Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. I bought this one at the same time, and that's a great album, very classic. All right, we have come down to the top favorite album of mine of Black Sabbath. This may not be your personal favorite, but this is my favorite. You can make your opinion there in the comic section below. Tell me what your favorite Black Sabbath album is. And I will definitely agree because they are all great. Maybe some albums I didn't care much for, but still, Black Sabbath is Black Sabbath, and I love Sabbath. Last but not least, Forbidden is my favorite Black Sabbath album. This is the reunion of the tier lineup with Cozy, with Neil Murray, with Tony Iommi, with Tony Martin, Jeff Nichols on keyboards. This album is just a killer album. This one features Ice-T in the first song, Illusion of Power. This was also mixed by Body Count's guitar player, Ernie C. Which Ernie C and Ice-T, they have both worked together in Body Count. And, it was a tough decision for Black Sabbath to come together and be like, should we do this or should we not? It was rough for Sabbath. And plus, Tony Martin knew that Ozzy was going to be coming back after the Forbidden tour. Tony Martin was told by Iommi that Ozzy's coming back. They had the decision, but IRS wanted Sabbath to come back in and do one more album with Martin, and Tony Martin agreed to it. They went in, wrote their songs, recorded the songs, and it's just amazing. Cozy Powell himself has also said his drumming, he didn't like how the drums were mixed on the album, but I love his drumming. His drumming's just, you can hear it very well. You hear it's out there along with the other instruments in the album. Tony's guitar is phenomenal. And around the same time, Tony Martin, he had a bunch of vocal issues. He had a issue with his vocal cords. And, his voice sounds very rough on this album. But overall, you can't beat this album. I love this album, Forbidden. And I also heard Tony Iommi, he's remixing this album, and I can't wait to hear the remix version of the album. I'll see what I think about it, but hopefully he will very, very soon. But Forbidden is my top favorite. That's everything, and I will go back through, and this will be my best to worst now. Forbidden. Volume 4. Paranoid. Dehumanizer. Mob Rules. Tear. Live Evil. Cross Purposes. Heaven and Hell. Headless Cross. Master of Reality. Black Sabbath. The Eternal Idol. Born Again. Never Say Die. Sabbath Bloody Sabbath. Seventh Star. Technical Ecstasy. Sabotage. 13. And the end. This is it. This is it. This is the end. This is my very first album rank for you guys. The Black Sabbath albums ranked from worst to best. I hope you guys have a great day. There will be more than this. Just comment below what you guys want to see next. If you guys want to see some drum covers, comment below what song you want to hear, and I will be glad to review it and record it for you guys. Any other album ranks you want me to do for you, I'll be glad to do it. You guys stay safe and have a good one. Rock out, everybody.